Coming to America. Memories told by Elsie Colander.
Hello, this is Betsy's grandmother, Elsie, and I want to tell you about some stories that my mother used to tell me about how she got to America from Sweden. She was only 16 years old when she left, and she must have been hard for her. She came all alone, and she decided that she was coming here because both her mother and father had died. Her father had died in January of 1905, and her mother died the following December in 1905 also. So it was a sad time for her, but she had two sisters that had come to America, and she wanted to be over with them. She did have some family in Sweden, but they weren't really close. They were half brothers and half sisters. So she decided that the best thing was for her to come to America where her sisters were. She left her home, and her uncle helped her because as she was so young, it must have been hard for her to get all her belongings together to sail over the ocean. But he did help her, and her relation helped her. She got packed, and all her belongings must have gone in a big trunk, and she set sail from Gothenburg, Sweden, to and they sailed to England, where they got off the boat and got on another boat that left from England and went to America. She used to tell me what a very difficult trip it was because they didn't have the conveniences they have nowadays. The time was long. It took her at least 4 weeks to cross the ocean. And there were all different groups of people on the boat. Most of them, well, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of them were from England and some from Sweden and also from Italy. They left England, and most of the people were seasick the whole time they had left, which was an awful thing to see, I imagine, and to even live in such conditions. But she did make it to New York City or Ellis Island, where they had to land first. And she saw the Statue of Liberty, which she had been told was the beginning of everything. And she found out that she could not understand anything that they asked her because she only spoke Swedish, and it must have been pretty hard for her. She as she entered Ellis Island, and they were put in groups, and wherever they were going, there was the group that was going to Jamestown, New York, because there were lots of people who had gone on before, and they were going to Jamestown too. So they put a name on her name and where she was going to, and they took a ferry across over to New York City, where they went and boarded a train, which took it took at least a long time to get to Jamestown, she said. She couldn't remember really. But she finally got to Jamestown, New York, at the train station. And all she wanted to do was to see her sisters who were looking for her. And they were not at the station, but a man there had seen the sign on her coat or her clothes. And so he said, I will take you to your sisters. And she gladly accepted, and only he must have talked in Swedish, because I don't know how else they would have understood. So anyway, she did get to the place where her sisters were staying and working, and they were working as maids of cooking for certain people in Jamestown. And they must have had a wonderful time just getting together and getting to see each other again. She later found some work at a dentist's house on South Main Street. I think she told me it was a dentist, Johnson, so they were Swedish. And she learned how to cook and to cook very well at that place. But she didn't really like that work, so she wanted to work in a mill where she would make a little bit more money as a weaver. And she did finally get into one of the early woolen mill factories here in town, and she worked for many years as a weaver, and she saved up money to get back to go back to Sweden a couple times just to see what it was like. This is Selma at the age of about 15 or 16, before she left for America. But she must have been going on a picnic there or something. And it just shows how they dressed. And the woods behind. She always loved the woods and the country. This is the house where she lived. And it must have been a big farm. And now it was built in the 16th century, and today it is protected as a history memory. And the next one is a picture of the school where she went, and it just looks like a white and red house, like they all were built, with the brick, with the stone things around all the schoolhouses and churches. And the next is the ship that she left Gothenburg. Not a ship, but it looks smaller than, I don't realize how big it is, but we'd call it a boat, I guess. When she left Gothenburg on this boat where all the people are waving and saying goodbye to the ones that are going to America. And the next is the ship that she took from England to America, and it must have been a pretty rough ride. And the next is the three sisters over in this country as they look back in the early 1900s.